Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another podcast. We are here today at Collide Studios in Houston, Texas. So, shout out to Collide. They're building some awesome stuff in energy and as well as a community online. So, make sure you download the app Collide and join us and a bunch of other awesome people in this industry. Today, we have the pleasure of interviewing one of my favorite people in this industry, Sarah Magruder. And she is just like a light of fires, sun, sunshines, unicorns, you name it. And I think everybody who's met you will say that about you. And so you've just got this energy that everybody loves. And I'm excited after all these years of just seeing you be a supporter, coming to our events, becoming friends to finally, get to hear your story. And when Jamie and I did your career interview a few weeks ago, we were like, how did we not know any of this, right? Because it's incredible to hear your story. And I think a lot of people who are going to be tuning in, they've met you at events and they would just never guess that you've come through so much hardship, but good things, and you are here today. And so I think that's what I love about your story so far. So, Sarah, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you guys so much for inviting me. And we do have a little bit of a shared journey. Y'all started flipping the barrel around the time I started my first company. And I remember being at your first events and so proud of y'all and how you made it through and watching you evolve has been a pleasure. And the events just getting bigger and bigger. And I'm just so proud of you guys.
Thank you, Sarah. And I to echo Massiel, like I just know from the first time I met you, the way that you walk into the room and literally the light that shines off of you is like so infectious. And so I'm so happy that we can sit here today and really share your story because although we have all seen you on LinkedIn, we all feel like we know you. There's a lot that I knew nothing about, like when we first started getting into your pre-interview. And so I want to like step back, look at your childhood, look at where you came from. And that was one of the first moments for me that I had no idea that you grew up as a military child. So traveling all around, like never in the same school. There's so many things with that that you get to adapt to as, you move around with your family. Tell us about that. And also, I'd always thought that you stayed in Louisiana your whole life just because for me, like when I see Sarah, Louisiana is like one for some reason. So tell us about like that's not you did spend time in Louisiana, but it wasn't the only place that you lived.
Yeah, I think the best way to understand me is I'm a true Gemini. So there's always two sides to me. And I think that growing up as well, in a household where my dad went to the Naval Academy and he was in the Navy for 30 years. My mom was a teacher, she focused on special education. So we always had kind of a tale of two lives. My dad was the captain at sea at work, and my mom was the captain of our ship at home. And in the same way, my mom's family's from Louisiana. So that was always the only true rooted home that I knew because my dad's family had moved over here and they were in the Navy as well. So they didn't really have a rooted home either. So we did travel around a bit. I was born in I was just telling my husband this the other day because we were getting my son's cop for we think to go do fun stuff like y'all do.
I love it.
And my husband be like, I don't even know where you were born. And I was like, Bethesda, Maryland, at the Naval Hospital, because my dad was stationed in Washington, D.C. So I was born there, but we only lived there like 6 months of my initial life. But it's funny because anytime you go somewhere and people say, "Where were you born?" Bethesda, I'm like, "Oh, military, huh?" They know if you're born in Bethesda, you're military. So we lived in Florida, San Diego, Hawaii, back to San Diego, back to Florida, made a jaunt up to Rhode Island, which is pretty random. And then my dad was deployed during the Gulf War. And so for 5 years, we moved back to Louisiana to our family lake house just because he was at war and at sea. And it was, my mom wanted us to be surrounded by family. So it's definitely a hybrid of that. And it was an interesting journey of, I didn't really know much different when you're young. And when you live on a Navy base, you're surrounded by family, all of the women or men whose spouses are deployed and their children, you're just a big giant family. So I never felt that way, but it was hard every 3 or 4 years to basically pack everything up, and the Navy would give you a cargo thing or something, and this is what you can take with you, whatever fits in here. So it was a lot of shedding things over time of pick your favorite toys and we're gonna go and you're gonna have a new day at school where you're not gonna know anybody and you're gonna be the new kid. And I remember when we moved back to Louisiana from Hawaii, which by the way was culture shock, going from one to the other. And my mom was teaching at this school in our hometown, and she made me stand up to introduce myself. And she was like, telling the state fish of Hawaii. And I was like, oh my God, it's humu humu nuku nuku apua'a. And she was like, now spell it for him. And I was like, oh my God. And these kids were looking at me like I was a straight alien, and like, I'm like, that's my icebreaker, like party tricks of the state fish in Hawaii. But it really did, looking back, it was hard. I mean, I cried every time we moved. And we weren't in a social media phase where you could keep in touch with people. So it's funny now that, when Facebook came out, I reconnected with a lot of my childhood friends from California and Hawaii and stuff like that, and got to catch up and follow them. They always wondered what happened to me. So you do have like this long, broad network of people, but you had to leave them all the time. And back then it was harder to keep in touch. So it was pretty sad. And going into a new place, having to adapt. Who am I going to sit with at lunch? Get into that, but we always did have kind of the Navy base as a fallback of everyone's in the same position. And when we went to Louisiana, of course, all my family was there. So we felt very welcomed. And then I ended up going back and going to LSU, and my parents retired in Pensacola. And now I've lived in Texas for 24 years, which I guess makes me a Texan.
Yeah, I think it does. So I think what's cool is going through all of those things of moving and packing and meeting so many different kids in different schools you didn't know, but it was training you to be a really good entrepreneur and meeting clients and knowing how to sell and how to, be friendly with everybody. And so I think, those are like the little hidden eggs that we don't realize. You only see it when you connect the dots.
Oh, we're 100% looking back. I would say one of my superpowers is I can walk into a room now and read people and pick up a conversation with anybody and figure something out. And I 100% attribute that to learning that behavior over my childhood of this is new, this is nothing new. I've walked into a million rooms and for the first time and met people, but it's connecting with those people and feeling comfortable doing that I think that childhood gave me a special ability to do that.
Awesome. So we know when you turn 22, you're already working in oil and gas consulting. Tell us a little bit about just being in that space at 22. You're already in the oil and gas industry. What gave you that confidence and capability to lead and deliver at such a young age? And you've made consulting your whole brand now. Like that's what you do today. But how did you even fall into that, and how did you evolve in the consulting space?
Yeah, listening to your podcast, some people like were born and bred, I'm going to be oil and gas, and some people just stumbled into it through a college career fair. And for mine it was a little bit of both. I was planning to go through and get my MBA at LSU. I went down to do practice interviews, ended up getting 3 job offers for Enron, Arthur Anderson, and a little startup called Ryan. So I think that's where my entrepreneurial spirit clicked in. And I ended up saying, you know what, I can go back and get my MBA. I think I'm going to go ahead and go do this little startup company, Ryan. And within 6 months, Arthur Anderson and Enron went bust. And the flip side of that is the little company that I was at bought all of their side practices they had to sell off because of new accounting guidelines put in. So my company that was very small went to be very big, and they bought the oil and gas severance tax group from PwC. So that was 6 months into my career. And again, I'm friendly. So I went over and talked to them, and they said, hey, do you want to join our team? And I was like, yeah, it sounds great. I'll do oil and gas. I'm in Houston, but literally had no reason or inclination to do that other than it sounded cool. And then I think it just right time, right place. At that time, the state of Texas and a lot of states were pushing these big severance tax credits and initiatives. And there was a big federal tax credit as well. that we worked on. So like you mentioned, at 22, our team was one of the most successful at the firm. I had clients like BP and Chevron, and we're saving them, tens of millions of dollars. And to me, like coming out of college, that was just like monopoly money at that point. But it was very gratifying. But at that consulting, I think anybody you talk to has been in consulting. You're the minimum you're required to work is 50 hours a week, but you're expected to work 70 to 80. So I tell people, well, for that 4.5 years I was in consulting, I really worked 9 years if you put it in normal time. So it was a lot of great learning. We got to develop some processes. I got to learn from some people who knew it really well, and just had this exposure to these clients and getting to figure out these problems. And I kind of grew with these incentives that I've become a specialist in. But I did, after about 5 years of consulting, and that was all I knew I needed to go work in oil and gas. Like I couldn't just be a consultant from the outside. I needed to understand drilling operations, financials, like everything on the inside. So I took an opportunity to go work for a client, Swift Energy. I'm still such good friends with that core group that was there. And I was there for 5 years, and then Southwestern Energy moved down. I took an opportunity to go manage their group, and they're a bigger public company. And then found my way back into consulting. So it was a journey of opportunities that were put in front of me, and then just being passionate about oil and gas and how much I was able to help save these companies money and increase efficiency and bottom line. I mean, you're the good guy. Most people think of your auditor and accountant, they don't want to talk to you. My favorite story is when we do go out in the field. So, you're still toes in stilettos. I have a picture one day of I was packing my bag, and I had to go to Midland with my steel toe boots, and I had to come straight home to go to some guy. Well, so I had like my diamond crusted heels and my steel toe boots in the same bag. And I was like, this is oil field right here. But we do go out to the field a lot. It's one of my favorite things. We do have to understand operations a lot. And that's, I would say, atypical for accountants, like in what we do. So I feel like I get the best of both sides. But when we go out to the field guys are usually hiding from us because they're like, oh God, the accountants are here. And they hear the word severance and they think it means a severance package, like they're dead. And so they're literally hiding from us. And then I get in the truck and ride around with a lease operator for a while. And I'm like, look, if you tell me what you're doing, I can save you money and drop your LOE. And it's going to make you look real good. And then they're inviting me to their kids' birthday parties. And, they were best buddies. And so it's really getting people to buy in and understand that we're a little bit different in what we do from your traditional accountant. But it's a very specialized niche, but I love it, and it's all I've been doing for 24 years.
Was there like I'm trying to think you talk about your career story, and I think like why tax though? Like was there something was it just mean you fell into like the tax world or were you I don't know, like interested in that growing up or it was literally just
Oh, I think I told y'all during their pre-interview. Well, the summer before I went to college, I went to LSU because I was going to be a veterinarian. And then I worked at a veterinarian office and realized I can't suspend the sight of blood and animals in pain. So I was like, I got to find a job where I can make enough to just own animals. And so, went to college, wasn't sure what to do. I had a full honor scholarship to college, and my student job that came with that was in the business building. So I started taking business classes just because I was there as electives and really liked the accounting side, the finance side, and really enjoyed math. And I could see there was a path for me to have a career where I could own animals if I stayed on that path. But I certainly didn't know it would lead to oil and gas. But I definitely enjoyed the problem solving and the black and white of math. That to me, I'm not an engineering mindset, and I have no artistic ability or anything. So math makes sense to me. I like everything to be right and correct, and that's my happy place.
when I think about you, and we even said it in the beginning, like you're this light, you're incredible, and I had never thought in a million years that you had gone through the stuff that you've gone through in your life. Like just thinking about how positive you are today to know the setbacks that you had. And I'd love to go into those some because I think it's going to shock a lot of people. And some of the things that just shocked Marcel and I was had no idea that you battled cancer. And like cancer is such a terrible disease that I think everybody who hears the word is just like big blank gone. And to know that that was something that you had to deal with really shocked me. Not only did you deal with it, but you overcame it and then you lost your voice. Which not being able to hear Sarah talk, like I just can't even imagine a non-talking Sarah. Like I can't, like that world doesn't exist. So those two things alone and not getting into the other things that happened to you between, you just mentioned that you wanted animals and then you got in a horse riding accident, which you still own horses today. You love horses. I mean, that's part of your logo. So I mean, tell us, like for all those people listening that are going through something, because everybody does. And a lot of people, don't ever share it. How Tell us about that time and how were you able to overcome it a full year of not talking to coming and sitting here today and like literally smiling and just you're just such a positive light. And I think people really need to know how to overcome those real challenges that happen in everybody's lives.
I cannot appreciate. I need to carry y'all around in my pocket every day because you're making me feel so good. But my mom said something once about how kind of the most interesting people are the ones who've gone through the most because it builds so much character and then you choose how it defines you, how you react after something like that happened. My mom lost both her parents before she was 8. Her dad was shot down and killed in the Korean War, and her mom died in front of she and her 3 siblings in their house, in our lake house that we still have. And so, when you put that in perspective of, I think I haven't been through a lot, knowing what my mom has been through and who she turned out to be and giving back and doing all of that. And my dad, had similar challenges and overcame them and was very accomplished in the military. So to me, that was the norm. But yeah, there were a lot of times that built into this, when I was 27, I got diagnosed with thyroid cancer, which nowadays is a little bit more common, and it's something that can be easily treated. Back then, it was pretty rare for them to catch it in somebody 27, and when you're 27 and newly married, and thinking, "Oh my God, I have cancer," you think something's wrong with you, and just get it out. But that wouldn't have been so bad, except during the surgery, they paralyzed one of my vocal cords. So as you mentioned, I couldn't talk for a whole year. And like you, like I talked my whole life. I didn't know what to do. So it was a really lonely time then. You couldn't even go see a therapist because you can't talk to them. Like yeah, I felt very isolated, and I was working at Swift Energy at the time, and they were so kind. I mean, thank God we had email and text messages so I could communicate. I had a whiteboard in my office I would write on or take to meetings with me and write my thoughts on it. People came by and checked me and they'd just talk at me. Because so I am included. But I think that one of the biggest lessons I turned because I didn't know my surgeon was convinced it was going to come back. I didn't know. He'd never had a patient go a year. So I really was like, well, how can I make the best of this if this is my life now? And so I started just learning to listen and how to be a really good listener and really take people in. And then I started studying body language and body expression so that I could read people better or help them read me better. And so there you adapt to that. But it was a super sad and scary time. And about a year in, I was humming one day and realized I was humming and called my surgeon and was like, "Oh my God, my voice is back." And he was so happy. So I had my voice for about 2 or 3 years and then it started to go out again. And I was freaking out
Yeah.
because I was like, not again. And at this point, this is where technology helps. I went in, the EMTs have way better scopes and stuff. And they were like, well, your paralyzed vocal cord, the one vocal cord that's good, is going out. You've used it up. But they just invented a plastic vocal cord, which thank you, oil and gas, from plastic. A plastic vocal cord, a new technique that you could go in and replace it. So I always say I sound like a robot, but I'm so thankful I have a voice. I don't even care.
Yeah.
When they put that thing in, she was like, just like to hear my full voice, full voice come out again. But still, when I get in like a big room, like one of your events where there's 500 people, I have a cap to how loud I can go because it just has a limit. So that's frustrating, but in the grand scheme, I'm just so thankful to have a voice. And yeah, you mentioned I used to jump horses and had a big crash and broke kind of my whole right leg. It was like, maybe this isn't a great idea anymore. And so I stay on the ground now and do dressage or just ride for fun. But I can't imagine not having horses in my backyard. It's part of what keeps me sane and happy. But I did get divorced when I was 30. The not talking to cancer, I think, really affected my first marriage. And then that was when I transitioned from Swiss to Southwestern Energy. I kind of needed a change of scenery, change of everything, redefine my life. Now I have a new vocal cord, a new job. Yeah, like and getting to kind of go move up and bigger and greater things. And then, you know, I'm trying to think after that. I broke my knee again at some point. I then met my husband, my current husband. He doesn't like when I call him that. But my husband Brant, and we have a little son Jasper who's 9, and he's just the light of my life. And we moved out to the farm in Montgomery and have our horses, and um, so it has been a journey. But to your point, I've had to dig deep a lot of times. I've had some experiences. Starting a business is not easy. I've lost friends along the way. I had a business partner deal that went wrong. And um, everything you do, you have to pick yourself up and say, how am I going to move forward? And a couple of years ago, I chose that it was during COVID actually that I was so down from all the news and everything that was going on. And the world was so uncertain. And I said, what you put in your body is what you think and do. So I was like, I'm turning off all the negative inputs. I'm only going to focus on listening to good podcasts, reading good books, being around people. Like I changed my whole life to create this happy place and happy self, inner and outer, because I do think you have to do both. You have to change your exteriors and change your interiors and let them align. And I think that all the struggles that I went through gave me the clarity to know I needed to do that. And so that Sarah that you see walking in shining, as you say, that I feel like is my authentic self, finally being who I want to be and how I want to present myself and how I want to live my life. But it is very intentional. What I got into that, yeah, like I've developed that and I've consciously carved out all of the negative things so that I believe mindset matters and putting that in, people do notice that and so it's very nice to hear y'all notice it.
We definitely don't know world nice, is it? Yeah. But I just love that you were able to share something that's very relatable for a lot of people where you go through so many things, but at the end of the day, you chose to do the work and work on yourself and, and be positive after all of that. Because a lot of people can take all of those challenges and be like, oh, poor me, my life sucks. Like nothing's ever going to happen for me. But you were able to change the mindset and focus on the positive. And that's why I think you're so successful today. That's why you're living your dream life. You got this beautiful farm, in Montgomery with the horses. You have an amazing company that I'm always like impressed by. And so, but I think what's cool about the podcast is you could see that maybe you're not in that season, but that doesn't mean it's not for you, because you're like a proof that it could happen.
Oh, and I mean I can relate to anybody else of I'm living proof you can make it through
Mm-hmm.
and these things and that, there's the exterior help that you get during those times, but it's really the internal battle of how am I going to overcome and who do I want to be? That is very purposeful. It's not, I do not wake up every day singing with birds on my shoulder in sunshine. I'm not even a morning person. So, but uh, who I think is my authentic self is what I bring. And I think you're right. I think that resonates with people when you're authentic in any way, on a business front, on a social front. And you guys mentioned a lot, social capital, that you have relationships with people. Mine are genuine. And if I find people interesting or I think they're great, I want to see them do well. I want to lift them up. I want to be for other people what people were for me when I needed it, but also just all of the stuff I've learned and downloaded over the past several years. Sometimes people just lead by watching. So if that inspires or is in some way helpful to anybody, but yeah, it's not always chipper and rainbows. Sometimes unicorns and rainbows.
Let's talk about entrepreneurial, your entrepreneurial path. So you had a really successful career. You moved around, you kept climbing up, but there was a point where you felt like you kind of hit that glass ceiling that a lot of women talk about, and that was you in that period. I think it was like early 30s after you've gone through all this stuff, and you decided one day, you know what? I could probably do this myself, and you decided to start your own business, going to the entrepreneurial side. A, did you know what you were getting into? Did you do some homework, some research, get some advice before you did the leap? Or were you like, you made the decision and then you just owned it?
That is a great question. And I think that number one, you're right. I did feel like I'd hit a glass ceiling. And I think there's a point in your career that you probably both, and a lot of people can relate to, when you're like, either this is it for the next 15 years, or I'm going to do something else that lights my fire, and I kind of hit just that glass ceiling at that company. And the the off the record story is I was watching Straight Outta Compton with my husband, and Dr. Dre leaving to start his own company. All this was what really like that. I think I'd been chewing on it for a while, and I thought about it. I'd had some friends that had started their own things doing consulting, and I was at a point where I was settled. I had my husband, my son, was 3 or 4 at the time. So he was, out of diapers and starting to go to school. And it felt like the right time. And I'm a big believer in gut instincts, listening to the universe and what you're supposed to do. And for some reason, the universe spoke to me through Dr. Dre. So, making that decision, I did do a lot of research. I can't even tell you, I've probably read 50 books on starting a business, people who've started businesses. Like I am a serial information gatherer. I always want to be better. I've listened to so many podcasts. I want to learn everything that I didn't know. However, to your point, I was absolutely not prepared. Only anything can prepare you. I'm sure your husband feels the same way. When you start a company, you have these ideas in your head. It is rough at the beginning. I mean, it's scrapping for business, and you're a little fish in a big pond trying to make a big wave. And I got told no a lot. I had to learn how to ask. I wanted to do things one way. The clients were asking for things a different way, so I had to pivot. The people who have come and gone off my team, the clients who have come and gone, and getting to a point where, we'll take any work we could get at the beginning, to now being purposeful about, are we the right fit for you? And do we want to take on this project? I mean, 5 years ago, I wish I knew today, when I started what I know today, but I don't think you can do it other than go through the journey. So from an entrepreneurial standpoint, people who are thinking about it, just do it. Like, you really can't, there will never be a right time. You really cannot prepare. It's not going to go the way you think it is. But if you just start and let it evolve and adapt as you go and learn and listen, um, you know that there will never be a right time and you will never be ready.
Mm-hmm.
And talking about not being ready, I mean, you started Sapphire, and then a few years later, you had to rebrand and you restarted Savvy. So not only did you, looking back, talking about like, if you would have known what I know today, like it would have been easier, but you started a company, had to kind of fold it, change it, rebrand yourself. Let's talk about what that was, that process, and just branding in general. Because honestly, I remember when you changed to Savvy, Massiel and I were like, oh, she's got a new name, but like same thing. Like it's not, your brand was still so strong that I feel like changing the name and the logo just kind of looked like you revamped yourself.
Yeah.
So tell us about that process and what you had to overcome even with clients, and like how did you deal with that?
Sure. Yeah, I think a lot of people probably who know me now don't realize the difference in that. And when I did start, the company was named Sapphire. Again, we hired a big marketing company to come in, help us do a name, help us build out our website. I had no idea what I was doing, and anything like I was fully leaning on the people that do that well to help me to do that. So a couple years in, and I think a lot of business owners or people who have had business partners realize sometimes things change and you need to pivot and go a different direction. And so I decided when I did that I was going to do a rebrand, but it was going to be what I wanted to do because I knew more who I was as a business then. So Savvy was very purposeful. And so when I went to the marketing company and I was like, this is what I want. These are the colors that resonate with me. My name of my company is named after my horse who was a rescue off a slaughter auction. And I thought that's a scrappy name of a girl who's, got some grit. And so this Savvy, the rebrand to Savvy was what was meaningful to me. And again, kind of we talked about evolution wise, that felt authentic to me. And I made a conscious decision with marketing, which I think if you're talking any entrepreneur that's a small trying to make it, marketing is so key. I mean, having good marketing today, using LinkedIn, utilizing that properly, and being very strategic about it. I people probably have no idea how much time and effort I've put into my own marketing and it being the way I want it and having everything have the voice. And I mean, like that is something that has developed over time. I'm very, very protective of it, but I feel like it's truly authentic to me. Whereas the first company was, I don't know,
It wasn't as much inside a lot of well.
yeah, like, yeah. And so to your point, like when we made that change, everybody embraced it. And to be honest, when I told my clients that we were changing the name, they were like, we don't care if your dog pooping company. Yeah, we're coming with you wherever you go. Look, we don't care what your name is, and that I think,
Because you have a really good brand.
yeah, that you've like we are us and what we're called is, but I feel like Savvy is authentic.
I love Savvy. And I want to say a quick story. So you gave us these gifts, and I was just like, it was a unicorn Lego, a little unicorn stuffy. It was like unicorn candy. Like, I mean, it was just like, or whenever I tell people about Savvy, I'm like, the pink one, it's like a unicorn, and she's got like a horse on it. She even has like, she is the brand. She's pink. She's got like on the god thing, you had like a little unicorn. It's like, so it's cool that you were able to take like your authentic stuff and also transform it into a cool brand that stands out in the industry.
It is. I live my brand, and
Yeah.
and the reason unicorns is because what we do is very niche. And my team, I used to call them my unicorns, my dream team of unicorns, because they're so hard to find
Yeah.
people who are good at what we do. So it wasn't just. It really had meaning that tied in that we are a unicorn group that I can plan on that. But to your point, it was a little bit of a risk in the oil and gas industry, kind of embracing femininity, and purple is your hidden our sparkles and unicorns, and it's hard when I do these client appreciation boxes, and
Which are amazing.
which I'm very like conscious of. Okay, a lot of my clients are men, so I want to at least put golf balls in there, like
Get the rest I ever why them daughters. Well, yeah, I love that even more.
so many of my male clients will be like, I took the box home. My wife took this. My daughter took this. I took, like, I love that they're giving in. There's something in there for everyone. And And it's just something I enjoy in doing. But I made that conscious decision that I spent 20 years wearing navy pants, no, very minimal makeup. I had my hair tied up, trying to fit in, blend into a room full of men. And when I started my company, I was like, I'm gonna wear high heels. I'm not wearing pants again. I'm wearing dresses and wearing bright colors because it makes me feel good and happy. And that's also my brand. And also, if you tell somebody, I don't know how pink dress in a room full of navy suits, people can find you real quick. So it is not only a marketing decision, but it's also, again, my authentic person. Like, it makes me happy. So that's really, I'm like you said, when I think you're reflecting that, people understand it. And if they have a problem with rainbows and unicorns, they're probably gonna have a problem with a woman-owned business, and they're probably not my client.
Yeah.
And in that case, I'm okay with that. You're not for everybody. And I tell people that all the time.
I love it. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm happy that we were able to just tell your story. Because again, a lot of people meet you at the events, and like Jamie and I would just be shocked to know everything you've overcome and to where you are today. So keeping a positive, shining light at the industry. Thank you. Shout out to Savvy. You always support our events. You're always there for everybody. So if you're looking for, I still don't 100% know what you do. Yeah, I'm still obligated, but call her.
I will give the 1 second get out is up there. What it sounds like is severance tax and federal and state royalties is anytime that you are pulling oil and gas or any product out of the ground, you have to pay the state for taking their natural resources. So the state and federal government need to be paid a portion of your revenue that you get for that. For Texas last year, they collected $36 billion in severance tax. I hope companies pay the least amount of that they possibly can. So I know all the incentives and credits, and that goes back to go out in the field. If you process gas a certain way, you get a tax credit. So I'm reducing that and helping them find savings. But it's a huge revenue deal, but it is very, very specialized in what we do.
Well, you heard it straight from Miss Savvy herself. So where can everybody find you, Sarah?
I mean, you can't miss me on LinkedIn. That's really, I think, for a small business, the best way you can market yourself. And I'm definitely on there. We have an Instagram, Savvy OGC. Also, I'm usually at a lot of the events. I'm out and about. I'm very active in Women's Energy Network as well. So yeah, it's hard to miss me. But you can find me in our webpage, savvyogc.com.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. Please like, subscribe, leave us a comment, follow Flip in the Barrel on Instagram, social media, LinkedIn, www.flipinthebarrel.com, and stay tuned for upcoming events. We have, one last event for the year, and we love to see y'all on October 24th for Reputation Matters.
Yeah.
But thank you again, and thank you, Kalai, for letting us use your amazing studio. We'll catch you on the next episode.